Radio Raheem here with the voice of boxing, none other than Michael Buffer, here in Liverpool for the first time for me. I'm certain you've been everywhere in the world at least twice. How do you find Liverpool?
Look at this. It's beautiful. It's really amazing. Granted, they don't speak English here, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The Scouser accent is I'm getting, my ears are getting trained, so it's working out well. But I got to tell you, they have great sports fans here. I mean, really outrageous, loyal, hardcore sports fans and big boxing fans.
There are huge boxing fans here, and we've got Amir Khan, who's just like born up the road. He's like 30 minutes up the road in Bolton. When a fighter comes back after a layoff like this to his hometown fight, just in general, what do you think are the big challenges for him in the ring? And does being at home in an environment that's comfortable, is it helpful? Is it maybe harmful because it's too comfortable?
You know, a lot of times, people used to always use that phrase, ring rust. Oh, he's showing ring rust. He hasn't been. He's a master boxer. He's stayed fit. It's not like he sort of like thought he was retiring and then got fat and all that. His last fight was a devastating loss in which he spotted, probably when they got in the ring, Canelo might have been 25 pounds more than him. And that's a tough step. You know, when you're a heavyweight, anyway, 225 fighting a guy that's 25 pounds heavier. You're both big guys. But when you're a welterweight fighting a middleweight for the middleweight title, that's a big difference. But Amir dominated the fight with his skill until he got caught. And so, we have to recognize the fact that he is a master boxer and always has been. Silver medalist, a former unified world champion, and the night that he lost those 2 titles that he had, I thought he did well in the ring, but between the officiating and the scoring, it just kind of like didn't go his way. But I was there. I thought he clearly won the fight, but I didn't. I'm not the one that filled out the scorecard. I just had to read it.
And for the other side, like coming in with a guy like LaGreco, who is fighting a guy who, like, we know is going to have some ring rust. It's been 2 years, and who is susceptible to the knockout. It seems like LaGreco's been saying, I'm going to knock him out for sure. I'm going for the That's something he's going to target. Because in your experience, you think that's a hindrance for a fighter if they're focused on trying to get the knockout, or if that's a guy's vulnerability, is that a wise strategy?
Yeah, you were here at the press conference, and we saw, instead of wolf tickets, we saw a lot of respect between the 2 fighters, the 2 trainers, Fernando Vargas, former world champion for LaGreco, and Joe Goosen, who's trained quite a few champions. And but they both stated that this is business, and we're here to beat you up and win the fight, but no animosity, a lot of respect, and I like that. Now tomorrow, when the fact that they're all dehydrated and hungry and everything away, and they might be a little more edgy, but it shows that they have a lot of respect for each other, and at the same time shows that they seem to be in a comfortable place with how they feel going into this fight. LaGreco, if he wins, I think it would have to be by a knockout or multiple knockdowns to win his scores. Amir is probably figuring it's 12 rounds, by the way, too, for a non-title fight, which is very interesting. For Amir, it's going to have to use his skill and his ring savvy, and more defense that he's shown in the past against a guy who's really focusing on the knockout, like you said.
When they announce Amir Khan, or introduce him, I should say, they always say, former unified champion. You even just said that because it's an important accolade. It's something that is difficult to achieve. And right now we know the boxing world is trying to put together Wilder and Joshua for an undisputed heavyweight champion, unified champion, one world champion as the heavyweight in boxing, all of the world. You've been around so long. You've seen so much in this sport come and go. How important is that to have, in particular, a heavyweight, an undisputed heavyweight champion?
Yeah, it's really important, and it's like seems to be the most difficult thing to do because of the crazy politics involved, and these mandatories. Once a guy has 2, 3, and then hopefully wants to have 4 titles to make him undisputed. they keep having to fight these mandatories. I mean, look at Klitschko was recognized as the heavyweight champion, and his brother was the other heavyweight champion. But look at all those mandatories. He fought Ray Austin twice. Ray Austin never beat a top 10 fighter in his life, but had the connection through his promoter to keep getting rated as a mandatory. And it really kills the business. I mean, here you're a boxing journalist and a pundit. I have to introduce these guys, and you're right. There's nothing more exciting than saying, for the undisputed, whether it's heavyweight, middleweight, whatever, championship of the world. That's the real big title in sports. And we just don't have it. There's only one right now. It's Cecilia Brækhus from Norway. She's the only undisputed world champion.
The last guy in the boxing world to have the kind of notoriety, the kind of respect, the kind of dominance that an undisputed champion garners is Floyd Mayweather, who's technically retired, but is already now talking for his second comeback, if you can call it that, claiming that the octagon.
Okay.
You laugh, I cry. I did the exact same thing, but it was tears. So I still have to ask the question. I think you kind of know how you feel about it. With him nodding to the return to the octagon of all places. First of all, is that a disrespect to the sport and boxing, to his legacy? And is there a chance that we see Floyd Mayweather get beat?
Actually, I don't think it's disrespect to his sport. I think it's actually a tribute to Floyd Mayweather and his amazing ability to get great press coverage. Come on. I mean, in the last half dozen years, who can top Floyd when it comes to interviews? I mean, you've interviewed him many times, and I've known him for 15 years, and he's actually a delight to be around. And then he can put on that game face, and it's just he's an amazing personality and a very interesting person. So if he says that he wants to compete in MMA, it's you can say anything you want. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. And looking at the history of boxers going into mixed martial arts or the UFC, what's the longest fight? 60 seconds? I mean, come on.
James Toney? It wasn't even 60 seconds with Toney.
It's just it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. The other way around, it doesn't work either.
Do you and Bruce ever debate on who's got the better job, who's working in the better sport?
No, because Bruce has created a niche in the UFC, and it's very unique, and he got into it at a time where it was just about to explode in popularity, and he has a lot of knowledge with the sport. He's actually trained as a mixed martial artist, and he's goes to the gym every day, and he's one of those guys. And so for him, he's got those lungs that he can do like 8 and 10 fights in a night, where hopefully I can only do one and make it out of there and still not have to gargle with salt water. So, he's got his thing and I've got mine. And the interesting is, when the UFC first started, they couldn't even get licensed in a lot of states. And I did some of the early UFC fights, like in Montana and Wyoming, wherever the heck they were. And licensing, they didn't have the greatest commissions in the world. So they were just crazy, kick-ass fights. And because I had a contract with WCW Wrestling at that time, they felt like it was a conflict for me to do that. So Bruce got a chance to get his foot in the door, and his big brother gave him a few tips. I had him do some undercards and stuff, and boom, he knew exactly what he was doing. And then he created a style that's just amazing, and it's perfect for MMA and the UFC. I do my thing, he does his. And we always talk about the sport because he has to clue me in as to who the stars are, because I never knew who they are. So
you mentioned the WCW, which reminded me of this week I watched.
Big wrestling fan here, folks.
Yeah, this is true. No, it's true. When I was a kid, not anymore, but when I was a kid, I lived and died by this thing.
It was years ago.
Yeah, well, before I could grow peach fuzz. This sport, performance, this entertainment of the WCW, WWF, WWE, all these things, they produced this documentary on HBO about Andre the Giant. I honestly, when you mentioned that, I didn't think about you having been around that world and met all of these incredible athletes
Let
as
me
well.
tell you something, brother. You know, I mean, that world, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How did you find that in contrast to boxing? And like, talk to me about some moments.
I got to tell you, I did WCW for 7 years, and there was this period in the 90s where pro wrestling was massive. It was huge. And we both would be on the same time on Monday nights. We had Monday Nitro, and the WWF, as it was called then, had Raw, and what was the other one? They had like 1 hour after another.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was unbelievable entertainment. And those guys, I found, were some of the best athletes you will ever see in your life. I mean, unbelievably fit and amazing at what they do. Pardon me. And I was really impressed with their ability to take punishment, and it wasn't just what you saw on Monday night. They would then go on the road and do 3 and 4 more shows, and then come back again once a month for the big pay-per-views on Sunday night, and then have their Monday night shows. So, man, these guys worked and traveled and partied hard, and they were very, very interesting guys. And I do remember once, after we used to have this big thing in Sturgis. It was the motorcycle rally week, and we would have WCW wrestling there. And I made the mistake of going out with Hogan and the Nasty Boys and a few others. And the last thing I remember is nothing. I woke up 3 hours after my plane left in my hotel room and don't even know how I got there. So, man, they could party hard.
Goals. We're having dinner before you leave here, and hopefully you'll be able to tell another one of those kind of stories about the time you went out with Radio Raheem. I'll tell you, Bruce might have the tougher job with all those fights to do in one night. You've definitely got the better job because you're in boxing, but I've got the best job because I get to talk to legends such as yourself. Oh, it's always a pleasure, man. I always learn something. Radio Raheem with the voice of boxing, Micheal Buffer.